Hello again, everyone. Welcome back. Um, some people saw some of the last video. That's good. Hopefully, we can get more, and some people can be interested in having a conversation. That'd be nice. Welcome back to Miasmata Stigmata, or Miasmata. So today, I wanted to talk about the Western culture and nice guys finishing last. The reason I have this up here is I wanted to share why the West is different from most places in the world is because we allow people to be themselves, and we are the most tolerant of societies that has ever been out there in the face of the earth. Even from medieval times to modern times, the West has been the most accepting, understanding, and acceptable group of all time. You can try to fish out examples, but if you look at the statistics, it shows that the West is the best. So why do I have this notion here today of nice guys finish last? The American society we know today is mostly brought about by things like the Enlightenment period, and even before the Enlightenment period, Judeo-Christian values are what gave us the sense of fairness. For further insight on this, look at Jordan Peterson's video on the Bible. He talks about how Christianity was one of the first true religions, and as well as Judaism, to really look at things as wrong and right. Before that, polytheism in the Greek and Roman empires were awfully paganistic, and along with many other pagan religions. There wasn't a sense of morality. It was not a sense of wrong and right. There was just, if you want to favor vitality, if you wanted to favor some aspect of your life, you prayed to a certain god, and that would get you what you wanted. Whether or not people died or people got hurt or caring about somebody, there's a deep sensation deep inside every person that wants a justice and equality, something that we can stand up for and say, this is moral, this is good, this is holy. But in order to have the value of good and holy, you also have to have the opposite, like we were talking about last time, of yin and yang. You have to have the good and you also have to have evil. You cannot have one without the other. So that's what I'm here to talk about today, is nice guys finish last, being the moral good. And the reason this saying exists is it's actually kind of a derogatory statement, particularly about the commonality of white people being nice, that they let other people go in front of them. And it's like if you're running a race and you're a nice person, you're going to let everyone go in front of you, therefore you'll finish last. And the majority of white people and Western people have done just that. They've gotten out of the way for other marginalized groups so that they can get ahead in life. That's why you see things like feminism and black identity, Asian identity pop up. If these groups were truly oppressed, and they know they're not oppressed, they just say they're oppressed because it helps them feel valid. They're not trying to justify their marginalization to other people. If that was the case, people would already see it in them. They're trying to justify their beliefs of feeling marginalized to themselves because deep down, they don't actually believe it. Because if they really truly believed it, they would never have to say it. A famous quote from Margaret Thatcher is, if you have to tell someone you're a lady, you're not a lady. And the point is perfect. If you have to tell somebody you're oppressed, you're not really oppressed. People can see it. So, as time goes on, life gets easier. This is what nice guys finish last is turned into. You take a good, well meaning person that's trying to be nice and trying to be helpful, someone that's actually been downtrodden. Most people that are actually oppressed in this world are not going to talk to you about their oppression. They're not going to tell you that they're oppressed or that they feel downtrodden. This is a really good example. Someone that's clearly overprivileged, they have nice things, they have nice clothes, they have nice hair, and somebody that's never gone against actual oppression or any sort of strife in their life walks with a sense of arrogance and a sense of non-caring. Meanwhile, you look down here, this picture is a very good iconoclast of the problem that we're facing in modern society. Regardless of the race, the color, the point still exists that there are small voices of people that don't make anything, don't make any money, claiming oppression. If you look at the Chuck P., the writer of the book Fight Club, he made an excellent point. It's near the beginning of the book, I believe, but it's also said in the movie at the beginning title screen. This generation has gotten so good and so well done that they have no cause and nothing to fight for or to struggle for, and so they struggle to find a fight. The trouble with identity politics, particularly oppression politics, is it's very dangerous. Few people like to talk about what real Nazis are. Now, it's popular to call this a Nazi, that's a Nazi, but most of the people that actually face the Nazis are either dead or no longer exist. And little do people know that Nazis actually came from an oppression, from a struggling group. Here's an example of real modern day oppression. This woman's not allowed to speak, not allowed to live her life because she was raped. And she's forced to marry her rapist, and that's her child through rape. There are places in this world that are actually oppressed, but you never hear from them because they're oppressed. Spoilers, people that are actually oppressed can't really talk. But the great thing about the West and places like America is their pluralistic attitude of letting everyone in, have an equal voice. And this is slowly dying out to people that have lived their whole life like this. Here's a great example. It's easy to take oppression and turn it into a banner slave to justify things that you want to see happen in the world, oftentimes through authoritarian means, to accomplish what you want the world to look like. People fail to realize that people like Karl Marx and uh, Vladimir Lenin and Joseph Stalin came from very wealthy backgrounds, and they were often seen as degenerates in their lives and their families. But they created a artificial persona through propaganda to make themselves look good, much like we see in modern day people claiming that they're oppressed. If you're truly oppressed, how do you have time to protest? Something that a lot of people come up and tell me about America is they say, "Oh, you're so rich." And I ask, "Why is that we're so rich?" And they say, "Oh, you have time to protest. You have time to claim you're oppressed. You have time to complain." People that are truly repressed don't have time to complain. So, like I was talking before, I wanted to talk about the idea of Nazis. This is our comical version of today's communists. They think there's some evil, mischievous person that hides behind white identity. And nothing could be further from the truth. These mustache-twirling simpletons, these villains, are exactly that, comic book characters. They want a straw man that they can knock down. What they don't truly understand are what were the real Nazis. What were the real faces of people that were actual Nazis? This is a nice pretty woman from the 1940s and 1930s. Some of you may know her. If you don't know this person, her name is Coco Chanel. She's a British citizen that lived in Germany for a long time. She's been touted as one of the people that modernized the modern woman in the 1940s. She helped do away with things like corsets and pageantry. She was oftentimes thought of as a very modern woman for her time, before you had nose piercings and fat acceptance and all those kind of things. This was the hip, trendy woman to be. You know, the kind of edgelord, dyed hair, pink kind of persons. Why is Coco Chanel so interesting? Why am I pointing her out? How is this modern progressive woman of the 1940s a Nazi? Well, she spent a lot of time in Germany fraternizing and agreeing with people that agreed with her. Coco Chanel is still a modern brand we have today. The thing about Coco Chanel is she pushed a modern ideology, the progressive ideology, that talked about taking women out of the kitchen, out of these dainty dresses, and making them work and do things useful. She wanted to liberate women, and she spent many a time liberating women. But when she came to places like America, she was actually a Nazi agent. Yet people still buy her products today and nobody calls her a Nazi, even though she is a literal freaking Nazi. Nazis are not faceless individuals. They're people with ideas of authoritarian, and they want to impose their life on you. So what encourages somebody like Coco Chanel? Well, let's talk about actual, factual Nazism. Where did Nazism get born out of? The modern day idea of Nazism is born out of the 1930s novel, 1925 novel, or novel, sorry, 1925 novel of Mein Kampf. This book was written by Adolf Hitler after he was a failed artist and became a soldier in the German army, who had a half Jewish mother, or I'm sorry, yeah, I think a half Jewish mother himself. But oftentimes it was people in high society positions that were Jewish that denied him when he was an artist, which is why he blames he was a failed artist, is because of other people. For all main purposes, Hitler was very bad at everything he did. The only time he came into fruition, into common known, is because of his book Mein Kampf. He wrote this book in prison. He wrote this book in prison because he was inciting and riling up troops to fight against the German government of the Reichstag of the day. He was doing it because he truly believed that the government was corrupt, was uninterested in helping the people, and was a war being waged against the German people. He had a couple of points, but he didn't do it right. The reason Mein Kampf became so popular is people agreed with his struggle. It wasn't his struggle, it was the struggle of everyone. He was the everyman, and that's what made him so dangerous. He's not a pretty person. He's not, a connoisseur of life. He's not a rich aristocrat. He's an everyman. He's Andrea Cortez type, or Alexandria Cortez type. Somebody that's young, idealistic, and has a strong authoritarian edge. The story of Mein Kampf is how Hitler laid out, in his words, how to stop the Jews from controlling everything, to stop what he saw is the burdens or the poison in the body of what he called the Aryan race. He believed that there was a group that could be pure-blooded in the body of the German people. So, I know I'm not doing very good at this, but if I could talk to a person and bounce this off of them, I could do a lot better. I'm better in debate styles than presentation. Sorry. But I just wanted to let people know that, we live in a nice, fair, free society that allows many people many voices because of our choices of protecting bad and good speech alike. You don't need a freedom of speech when it's popular speech. You need freedom of speech when it's an unpopular speech. That's why we have it. And never let it go, because when you do, things get bad. And when people aren't allowed to speak, problems come out. And if problems come out and they can't talk about it, people will fight. People are also wondering what are some other versions of, Nazis that were celebrated. IBM computers is an example. IBM computers sold machines on how to kill Jews in concentration camps faster. Another example is some people may not know him, but what's his name? He was a famous pilot that was probably the first person, not the first, but a very famous person that made the first or second transatlantic flight. I forget his name right now. But he was a Nazi himself because he was tantalized by their vision and their technology. The left and Nazism and technology go hand in hand. The people that wrote the best propagandists were some of the most modern, forward thinkers of their time. These were people that were not good politicians, but were amazing in their field and uh, had their fingers on the pulse of society. Lindenberg, that's his name. Charles Lindenberg was an American that turned Nazi, and he was a very pretty, very technological forward person that became a Nazi. Look up Charles Lindenberg, you'll find out what a real Nazi looks like. A lot of these people that were Nazis were very good in their fields of technology, propaganda, much like we have today. People that are in technology and Facebook and Intel. I mean, they're creating AI that can censor people before they even post something. Look at what Google and Intel's AI projects funded by the MacArthur grants are doing. You know, this is what propaganda looks like. And so before people go off on like, oh, these old fuddy-duddy Republicans are Nazis, you don't know what a Nazi looks like. Few people talk about this. The word Nazi is shorthand for the word National Socialist Party. What happened is a very left-leaning party became very authoritarian, got into power in the German Reichstag, and then as authoritarian leftists fail, one voice becomes solidified and goes to the top, and everyone under them is killed and destroyed to make way for the single ruler, which is what we're seeing today. We're seeing leftists fighting and tearing each other down and eating each other so that they can be the one at the top making the decisions. It's very similar to what happened back then. Anyways, just remember our freedom and our freedom to speak and our freedom to offend and let people make their choices is the most important thing in the world. That's all for today. Maya's Meta signing off for your daily dose of poison. Goodbye.